But first up this morning, amid getting my dentures back in, amid all the COVID restrictions that have delivered, as you've just heard in our news bulletin, the hardest of hard borders between our state and particularly New South Wales from midnight last night, we are talking about and planning a football festival at Optus Stadium. Really? Do the two mix? I mean, I've got to say this morning, I'm a big football fan. Love the game. And under normal circumstances, I would find the prospect of a grand final and preliminary finals held in this state to be a terrific event. But I have to say, in this climate, when we are asking, demanding others to obey laws that prevent family and friends from travelling and being together on compassionate grounds, then the idea of allowing dozens of players, hundreds more hangers-on, to be given exemptions for a sporting contest is nothing but truly distasteful and totally insensitive. Remember, from midnight last night, even if you are fully vaccinated, you will not be able to travel to the biggest state in Australia or vice versa to be with a dying relative. And yet, somehow, importing a phalanx of football talent is totally acceptable. Have we lost the plot? The other part of this equation is that clearly the numbers have been crunched because the head honchos at the AFL have accepted the deal. That's what all the hoo-ha was about yesterday. Sure, the game is only going to Optus if the lockdown continues. But with those numbers in Victoria today, that's almost certain. But the deal has been done. So what's the deal? How come the public in WA, who will be paying for these games, whether you go to the ground or not, and probably all the travel costs as well that go with it, how come they can't be told how much they are paying? Joining us this morning is the Shadow Health Minister, Libby Mettam. Libby, good morning.
Good morning, Liam and listeners.
How do you feel about this deal?
Well, I'm very concerned about the deal the Premier made with the WA people, and that is about gold standard transparency. We have heard time and time again the Premier state that he would not be prepared to stump up funds to secure the AFL Grand Final. And now, quite obviously, a deal has been done and there has been no transparency about what WA taxpayers will be paying for the Grand Final. Now, I think many Western Australians would support the Grand Final. I think, but I think West Australians also deserve to know what the cost is.
Yeah,
and
I don't think that's
and
unreasonable.
There is a failure in transparency here.
I don't think that's unreasonable. I mean, if any of our listeners think it is unreasonable as a question from the taxpayer, by all means, give me a ring. 133 882 is the number. Libby, when the finals went to Queensland last year, among similar circumstances, the state treasurer there refused to divulge how much they were paying the AFL. Now, that was rumoured to be about $50 million, but we never got confirmation, of course, on that. Do you think...
My
understanding
is that is the case as well for Tourism WA.
For Tourism WA, yeah. Well... Yeah. Look, I've heard, and they're only, and I stress that they are only inside rumours. So I can't give you the definitive figure today. I wish I could. But somewhere between 36 and 50 million. It's not an insignificant amount of money. So why will the Treasurer here, which of course is the Premier, why will the Premier refuse to tell the public?
I also wonder why, when the Minister for Sport was asked on 6PR yesterday, that he was unable to provide any clarification on what the deal is with corporate visitors as well. As you say, Liam, at a time where we're shutting out compassionate travel for those extreme cases, we're shutting out Western Australians from our state. We have a government who've done a deal to have the AFL Grand Final here. But have also have some special arrangements regarding corporate guests. Now, I just think that the government need to be upfront with the WA people about what the deal actually is and what is the cost to the WA taxpayer. That is only fair and reasonable.
Away from the actual money, from the financial amount, do you know, as Shadow Health Minister, do you know in terms of health concerns how many, I'm talking a head count, how many AFL officials or officials from competing teams, how many corporate guests will be given exemptions from quarantine or self-isolation or whatever?
Not only do I not know, but quite obviously the Minister for Sport didn't know either. And we saw last year with the AFL hub where there was a special hub for corporate guests and dignitaries over in Queensland. It is important that WA taxpayers also understand from a health perspective what the special arrangements will be for corporate visitors, dignitaries. It is understood, obviously, players and their families, what the deal will be. Because on one hand, we have a government who have shut out Western Australians from a compassionate perspective, and on another, they are unwilling to disclose what the arrangements are with corporate WA and with corporate guests, and also with the AFL and obviously the football players as well.
Well, make no mistake, there will be a lot coming. I mean, again, we don't know the number, but there will be plenty coming, Libby, because the AFL, this is, a large part of their income producing stream as well. They have this package between the preliminary and the grand. They have this week-long package of events, and these people are very important to their bottom line.
And look, there is a great opportunity for WA from a tourism perspective. We have, Perth has really suffered, but the West Australian public have suffered, and we also have those West Australians who are, desperate to come home interstate, who are certainly feeling the pinch as well.
What do you think? What do you think about this argument of commercial incompetence? You know that government often plead commercial incompetence on events, especially tourism-related events such as these when they're ongoing, because they don't want other states to pinch them, next year or the year after. But how can any of this be commercial incompetence when it's a one-off event?
Well, when there are a lot of risks associated with the event as well, and we've talked about the swathe of corporates and dignitaries that will potentially be attending this event. When you are talking about the measures that will need to be put in place to ensure that it successfully goes ahead, when you know that there is a limit to the amount of interstate visitors that will be able to come to the state to actually enjoy the event as well, and I think West Australians have a right to know. As you stated, it is understood that it cost Queensland $50 million last time to buy the game last year. We have our Premier, stating that he would not be prepared to stump up funds to secure the 2021 Grand Final. And yet, quite obviously, some financial deal has been done with your money and my money. And I think we have every right to know what that deal was.
And look, what about just purely on health grounds? Because obviously all the border controls we have at the moment around the country are on health grounds. So are you confident that none of this will lead to our COVID-free state being compromised?
Well, I think there is an opportunity for quarantine, testing, isolation and measures to be put in place to potentially ensure that such an event goes ahead. But I ask the question, why aren't those measures good enough for an everyday Western Australian who wants to return home? Why is that not good enough? And it is the double standard that we are seeing time and time again by the McGowan Labor government, which is the biggest issue here, as well as the lack of transparency. Because on one hand, we have a real issue in terms of health. But when it comes to doing special deals and bringing corporates and dignitaries over to WA, it is somehow okay and nothing to see. And I think the WA public have the right to know what the cost to the WA taxpayer is, what is the health advice, and what is the deal around the corporate visitors, and why, at a time where we're shutting out Western Australians on compassionate grounds, how is it okay for a swathe of corporate guests and dignitaries to be able to come to Western Australia for this one-off event?
Libby, we'll see if some of our listeners agree with you. Our talkback lines are open on 133 882. Give us a ring and tell us what you think. Do we have the right to know about what's going on here? Just before I let you go, Libby, on another related matter, and I ask you this question because you were in Parliament at the time that this happened. This was 2018, so this is 3 years ago. The McGowan government then passed what they called tough new laws, making it illegal for ticket scalpers to rip off sports fans, entertainment fans. What happened to those laws?
Well, that's a good question because more than 2 years later, it seems that there has been very little progress on those laws.
So were they enacted, or are they around or not?
Well, I then take the comments from Tony Buddy yesterday, the Minister for Sport, who stated on 6PR as well that these laws will not be enforced. So once again, the government's very big on talk and very little on implementation, and it is disappointing to have an event such as this potentially here in WA, and not to see these laws which in place which could have seen or could have protected WA ticket purchases from scalpers. But it does, I guess it highlights the lacklustre approach that the government have had to implementing their promises.
We'll have to leave it there, Libby, but thanks very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
Libby Metham, the Shadow Health Minister, here on the morning program, 9 133 882 is the number. We'll take some of your calls in just a moment.